You're listening to the J.D. Rucker Show. Let's begin. We are going to get this down. I am going to practice this every single night until we get this to actually work appropriately. Hey, welcome to the J.D. Rucker Show. Attempt number however many. I think we're on 4 or 5. But the most recent attempt to make Rumble Studio work. And again, I've always want to make sure everybody understands it's not Rumble Studio that's the challenge. It really is me. I don't know if it's just because I am uh, old or what, because I see other people are able to make it work just fine for them. For whatever reason, I cannot. I'm going to put in my earpiece just for a second to make absolutely sure that I've got this down appropriately. Let's see here. Let's go. Close that one. All right. Bear with me, my friends. I don't even know if y'all can hear me right now, but hopefully, Lord willing, you can. And hopefully, oh, and apologies for coming on late. Normally, we would start right at 9 p.m. sharp. There was a video that I tried 2 different versions of it to upload because I wanted to talk about it during the show, and I could not get it to work twice. First, it was a segment that I did earlier today before the amazing tariff news that President Trump put out there. Before that, I had tried to put out basically I was trying to upload the video to be able to play it here in Rumble, but I waited and waited and waited. I gave it about 20 minutes. I thought I'd have plenty of time because, generally speaking, uploading these videos to Rumble is they're like, I don't know, 10 seconds, right? But for whatever reason, there are certain ones, and this one in particular just didn't upload. Kept going, kept going, kept going. I really wanted to play it. It was a video of Kevin O'Leary on CNN this morning again before the tariff announcement. He had gone on CNN and basically called for 400% tariffs against China. And he made a very strong case for it. You know, it might sound on the surface, that sounds like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, crazy talk, except no, I'm not necessarily endorsing the idea, but I can totally understand why he would think that it is a good idea. And so, yeah, so there's that. So I tried to upload my segment that I did that went, I wouldn't say viral, but it got a lot of views on YouTube, and then tried to upload. It couldn't get it to work, so I tried to upload just the isolated segment from CNN. I was just going to talk about it live, and that didn't work either. So for whatever reason, a couple of these videos didn't fly. All that tells me is that I've just got to start earlier. That's all. I just have to get all of my videos ready to go, all of my clips that I'm going to be playing during the show. I got to get that started probably around 7 p.m. if the idea is to be able to go live at 9 p.m. One of my old producers, way back when, I guess it's only been about 2 or 3 years, but one of my old producers, he used to say, you know, get me all of the clips that you want to play, get them to me 3 hours in advance. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's not, doesn't take that long to get them plugged into the TriCaster or whatever equipment they were using. But he wanted it like that. And he said, you never know when things are going to go south. And today I learned that he was correct. That's why we were late for today's show. For those who missed yesterday's show, I will explain. We're in the process. My intention here is to be able to do a live show every night. You know, at the very least, Monday through Friday. I think it's possible that we could go 7 days a week because I work the libertydaily.com 7 nights a week. So why not? If we're going to be tying the show into the Liberty Daily, which we're in the process of doing, then why wouldn't I just do the show? What's the difference? I guess, you know, as Hillary would say, at this point, what difference does it make? Yeah, I'm going to be doing the Liberty Daily, as I have been for years, 7 nights per week, 365 days a year. And I'm going to be gearing my live show 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. I'm going to be gearing this show around my work on the Liberty Daily. And Lord willing, I will be able to do this in a way that is both entertaining and informative, because those are the two things that I want to be able to do. I want to be able to get you all the hard hitting news, the news as it's happening, which is why we want to do the show live. I also want to be entertaining. I don't want to be a talking head. Okay, and the next story is about Cash Patel and Pam Bond. I don't. Yeah, yeah. I don't want to be boring, and I definitely don't want to be unoriginal. So we're going to try to make this work. And when I say try, we're going to make this work. It's just a question of, is it going to take me a day, a week, a month? Eventually, it's going to work. And if we can get enough love for our show, for our sponsors, if we can get onto Rumble Premium, which I'm getting close. We're and I'm not talking about Rumble Premium. I forgot what it's called. The Rumble Premium Creators. You have to have 30 hours of live recording of live shows over a 30-day period, which is easy since I do approximately two hours a night, or that's what we will be doing. But because we have sometimes started and stopped, in other words, the show has not been consistent up until now, even though today I didn't technically start at 9, but prior to today, we hadn't been consistent, so we hadn't hit the threshold yet. We are going to hit that threshold probably later this week. By Saturday, I think that we should be able to hit the threshold. And once we do that, we will get into the Rumble Creators Program. We're already in the YouTube program. Eventually, I know this is going to sound crazy, and I would never have thought this was a possibility until very recently. We're even going to try to get in with Facebook. Now, here's the thing. Anybody who's watched my show for a long enough time, you know that I'm vehemently opposed to the censorship on YouTube, on Facebook, on places like that, and what used to be on X as well, or when it was Twitter before Elon Musk. And that's one of the reasons why I was an early adopter of Rumble, as well as Brighteon and BitChute, Getter, all the various places where this show can go. I was an early adopter. I abandoned YouTube, abandoned Facebook, and all that stuff. The only reason that we're getting back onto those particular networks is because, well, number one, both of them have demonstrated a willingness to be more open with what content they allowed. Ever since President Trump was elected, the censorship industrial complex has kind of pulled back on the reins a bit. I think that they realized that the sentiment meant that they couldn't let their true feelings out. Not as much, at least. Now, we are starting to discover, especially with Facebook, that Mark Zuckerberg's sudden transformation is probably very much a lie. And there was a Facebook whistleblower that we'll be talking about later on the show that demonstrated this very clearly. We think that, it's great, but it's not really as great as we thought. So that's why we are spreading ourselves further. I'm still, my focus is on Rumble and X, and Getter, and Brighteon and BitChute. Okay, those are the majors. But we do very well on Apple Podcasts, or we're starting to do well again on Apple Podcasts. We've been putting a lot of my clips over on YouTube, and those have been doing exceedingly well. We're finally getting into the thousands, tens of thousands of views on some of the videos. Lord willing, we'll get that into the hundreds of thousands. And it really does come down to the messaging. I'm not going to allow my distaste or distrust of these other networks stop me from spreading the truth on them. Okay, as long as, this is my only criteria, as long as I don't self-censor. Okay, as long as I'm willing to go on and not feel like, oh my gosh, I might get demonetized here, or I might get a strike. I don't care about any of that. I'm going to do my show. Okay, I'm going to do my show. I'm going to talk about the things that I talk about. And if they strike me down, then, I've always got Rumble and X and Getter and BitChute and Brighteon and all those other places. But until they strike me down, as long as they're allowing it, I'm going to continue to broadcast on those other networks, because we need to be able to reach as many people as possible. Period. Okay. That is the bottom line. I know that a lot of conservative show hosts, a lot of American patriots, maybe many of you have sort of, I don't want to say taken a step back, but at least taken a moment to breathe a sigh of relief ever since the election, then following that, ever since the inauguration, and then most recently, ever since some victories by the Trump administration. We've sort of said, okay, we got this now. We have an opportunity to save the country. Well, I believe wholeheartedly that the only true way that we can really do this is, number one, through God. God has to do this. This isn't. We're not gonna be able to fight our way through the powers and principalities that are arrayed against us. We are going to have to get onto our knees and pray daily for our nation, for our families, for ourselves. And yes, even for the world in many cases. I know a lot of times people are like, well, I kind of stop my prayers at America and we'll let the other people pray for their countries. That's fine. Some people are like that. Some people are like, you know what? I don't even pray for America. I just pray for myself and my family and my community, and maybe not even my community. Maybe it's just like, hey, I look, as long as we're in prayer, I'm good with that. Everybody has their own area of, I guess you could say, faithful responsibility. So that's number one. Number two, we have to keep fighting. Okay, we have to play a role. Now, people will say, well, aren't you contradicting yourself, Rucker? If you're saying that it's in God's hands, then shouldn't we be fine if we just sit back and do nothing? I mean, what are we can't affect it. What are we obligated to do? And to those people, I always say, number one, you want to be on the right side of, heaven. You want to be doing the Lord's work, doing the Lord's will. And number two, we don't know what our role is in any of this. It's not like God just says, okay, you all do nothing and I will put all the votes in for President Trump, or I will get Xi Jinping to do this, or I will whatever. He actually utilizes people. He always has. If you read your Bible appropriately, you'll realize that people are used for different reasons. Okay. For example, Pharaoh didn't realize that he was being used when he was first oppressing and persecuting the Israelites, and then following that, when he was Hebrews, I should say, and then following that, when he was pursuing them, he was actually playing a role. He didn't know what that role was. He just knew he felt compelled to do something. And that role turned out to be obviously negative for him, but positive for the world. So my theory, my stance on it all is that we fight the good fight. We do everything we can to do what we feel, what we perceive to be God's will. And we do this prayerfully. We do this through fasting. We do this through just reading our Bibles, talking about it, talking to others, talking to ourselves, and of course, most importantly, talking to God through prayer. So that's why I do believe that even while I say that we have to be, the most important thing we can do is be prayerful, the next most important thing we can do is to participate ourselves in any way that we can to help promote this agenda that I would say many, if not most of us, if not all of us, that's watching or participating in the show, we believe that there is a right way to take a right direction to take America. Now, we might disagree on the details. We might disagree on the semantics. We might disagree on, this issue I agree with Trump. That issue I don't. This issue I agree with the Republicans. This issue I don't. Whatever. Or this issue I agree with the church. This issue I don't. Fine. We can have those discussions, but as long as we are pushing forward in the same general direction, I do believe that this will help us. Now, I do think at the closer we get to the end, the more we're going to have to narrow our perspectives, right? We're going to have to become even more and more aligned. But in the meantime, we're not quite there yet. We still have a lot of work to do. So that is my stance on that. Now, I noted Cash Patel earlier. Let's go ahead and go straight to our first video. But before we go straight to our first video, I forgot to mention, and I was actually starting to mention, but then I got off on a tangent. Imagine that. I said that I'm going to work on this every day to try to perfect my self-producing skills. But in an ideal JD Rucker world, I have a producer, and we'll be able to afford to hire a good producer, because I've hired cheap producers before, and guess what? They were cheap. And they were cheap for a reason, and I found that out the hard way. So I'm going to avoid that altogether. No more cheap producers. That doesn't mean I have to go out and get a team of Tucker Carlson producers or Megyn Kelly producers. I know they've got some really good production value there. But if I can just get a good production team or even a single awesome producer, that'll be great. I need that. I think we all do. And I think that the easiest way for that to happen, of course, is if I can get enough funds coming in through the show. Now, I have a wide array of sponsors. These sponsors are awesome. I love them. I vetted them out. That's not to say that they're all perfect. You can ask any of my sponsors. If I've got a challenge with something they're doing, or if I disagree, or if I get a complaint, I will hop on the phone. I have a call with a CEO of a sponsor tomorrow at 11 a.m. Okay. I do. And that's just because I'm not telling you that for any other reason, but to say, look, if I have a challenge or even just a suggestion, ways to improve, I participate. I don't just say, okay, yeah, sign the big contract, send me the big check, and give me the words to read. I don't generally do quote unquote live reads. You might notice that if you've watched my show for a while. I don't sit here and say, and then today's sponsor is such and such and such. I gotta feel it. Okay. My coffee sponsor, which, yes, I know it's late at night and I'm drinking coffee because that's all I drink. I don't drink alcohol. Okay. I don't drink tea. I drink a little bit of water, but pretty much that's about it. I drink coffee and water, and that's it. So, and the coffee that I drink comes from a company called Promised Grounds. This is a Christian coffee company. And I've worked with other Christian coffee companies. I've worked with patriotic coffee companies. At one time, back in 2021 and 22, I actually we were white labeling a coffee company of our own. But the reason that I stopped, that actually only lasted, at least for me, the coffee company kept going, and one of my partners continued to promote it for like 2 or 3 years. I didn't, because I went through and I started promoting the company, and I got a bag of coffee, and I didn't like it. So I got another bag of coffee, a different flavor, and it was better, but it wasn't good enough. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess I can sort of promote this one. And this really drove the evolution, because I started realizing after getting my third and then fourth bag, and by the time I got the fourth bag, I started realizing my pitch, I guess you could say, my promotion of this coffee, it sounds as if it's like a hostage read, because I didn't believe in it. And as a result, I didn't sell very much of it. And I'm glad that I didn't, because again, maybe some people liked it. The coffee, I mean, people are still ordering it. Okay. To this day, there's still people that are on auto ship. I get to see the numbers coming in, but I haven't promoted it myself since 2022, because I don't believe in the coffee, because I tried it and I didn't like it. Promise Grounds coffee. I love it. I'll go ahead and tell the story one more time before we get to the video of Cash Patel. And this will probably be the last time I tell the story for at least a couple of months. I got the bag in, right? And like a couple of days later, this was over the weekend. I got the bag in, I think, on a Saturday. Monday show, I'm getting ready. This is back when I was doing a morning show. And I'm getting ready for my show. I go ahead and brew. I clear out the machine. I grind the beans from Promise Grounds. Brew my coffee, take it in there, start doing my thing, getting to work. Okay. About half an hour into working. I don't like super piping hot coffee. I know it's weird. I like my coffee a little bit cooled down. Hot, but not too hot. That's all. I like to be able to drink it. I don't want to have to sip it. Anyway, TMI. Anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm working along and I'm done. It's okay. And I'm saying I take a sip of it, and it was just like, if you ever see the cartoon Ratatouille, where the critic, I forgot his name, he takes a first bite of the ratatouille at the end, and it's like goes into like a memory of the past when he was a child, and how Ratatouille made him happy, and his mom, and it was like an emotional moment. It's like, zoop, that's how I felt. It's like I took the sip of coffee and I'm working, and all of a sudden it's just like, zoop. The heck, I had totally forgotten. I mean, at this point, it's sort of like, whoa, what did I do to make this coffee better? And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is the Promise Grounds coffee. I can't believe it. It's like my first thought was, this is the best tasting coffee I've ever had. And it really is the best tasting coffee I've ever had. Go to jdrucker.com/coffee, jdrucker.com/coffee. Again, this is a Christian coffee company. They do a lot of good work. They try to get water out to the world. Okay, they try to help churches. They literally travel around Texas helping churches to get their coffee service good, because their theory, and I agree with this, their theory is, if you got good coffee service, then people may not realize why they're more inclined to come to church on Sundays. They just do, and it's like, whether it's subliminal, whether it's conscious, something about it's like, yeah, you know what? I can't skip church this weekend. Don't know why. I just feel like I need to get, and then they're sitting there in the pews, drinking their coffee. Wow. You notice I'm sipping it because, unfortunately, I didn't wait long enough. The coffee is still a little bit too hot. I have a very narrow coffee temperature zone. Okay, it's like if it's too hot, it's too hot. Then it gets that zone. That's why I keep it in the thermal cup. But then, like, about 15, 20 minutes later, it's starting to get too cold. So I've only got that small window of opportunity. All right. So, Cash Patel, this is a longer clip. I apologize up front, but it's worth it because, look, I've been very critical of Pam Bondi, our Attorney General. I didn't want her. I wanted Matt Gaetz. I'll admit it. I didn't want her, but we'll take her. And I obviously, the whole Epstein files thing really disgusted me. But lately, she's been coming around. Cash Patel, on the other hand, I've always wanted him. He's been a little, I wouldn't say disappointing. It's early on. I expected more so far. We'll see. But they did have a major drug bust. So let's go ahead and see what they're saying about that.
Thank you all for being here today. Today's operation is an example of the unprecedented collaboration between the military and the Department of Justice components, working closely with the U.S. Coast Guard. And look at all these great men and women in the Coast Guard. Thank you so much for your dedication. This is a textbook example of the Justice Department supporting the fight against violent crime. These drugs are worth over $500 million, almost 45,000 pounds of cocaine, pure cocaine, uncut, and 3,800 pounds of marijuana. Congratulations again to the Coast Guard. You have done incredible work, Admiral, and your team, Captain, in securing these drugs. This team, with all the agencies I just mentioned, used drones, aircraft, and ships to interdict the traffickers off the coast of Peru, Ecuador, and the Galapagos Islands. What they did saved countless American lives. Countless lives. This cocaine would have been distributed throughout our country and perhaps throughout our world. 11 separate prosecutions will take place as a result of this, and they will be prosecuted in the Middle District of Florida. These defendants will be held accountable for bringing this poison into our country. I always say, if we can save one life, we have done amazing work. And today we have saved thousands and thousands of lives as a result of this incredible cooperation. We believe two cartels, CJ&G and Sinaloa, were heavily tied to these shipments. This is a major blow to their financial operations and their efforts to distribute drugs throughout our country. It's an example of a prosecutor-led, intelligence-driven approach to stopping these criminal enterprises in their tracks. DOJ and all of the agencies involved will continue to dismantle this transnational criminal organization, lock these criminals up, and keep our country safe. The drugs that you have seen today will no longer destroy lives. They will help us lock up the criminals. Thank you all, and it is my honor to introduce the Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Kash Patel.
Thank you all for being here. General Bondi, we're here today because of your dedicated leadership to safeguard American lives, because you had the courage to follow President Trump's courage to put our children first and to make sure that the narco traffickers, and make no mistake, this administration has labeled them foreign terrorist organizations because that's what they are. There is no lethal force on planet Earth that is responsible for an overdose death of an American citizen every 7 minutes, more so than these federal terrorist organizations, foreign terrorist organizations. We are humbled to be a part of this Department of Justice, and we are going to continue to safeguard our streets. This is what it looks like when the United States whole of government approach brings every resource to bear, from the Department of Defense and the United States Coast Guard, from HSI, from FBI, from DEA, and so many others. They are going to get all the drugs off the streets, off the markets, and as Attorney General Bondi said, we are going to lock them up. They are no longer going to be free to roam. We are going to dismantle the next man up theory that has been breeding in these Mexican cartels for generations. No more. We are here today because of your brave work. The men and women of the FBI that I lead, I'm humbled and honored to be here in South Florida, where I spent so much of my career before I moved to Washington, D.C. And looking around, I'm awe-inspired by the fact that when you take the rules and regulations that blockaded these brave men and women of law enforcement, military, and you unshackle them, then you should look at this seizure and you should see how much it multiplies and see how many children and how many young adults and how many adults' lives that we have just saved. They did it. We're fortunate to be their leaders. We're humbled to be here. And you will see this happen across the country, because this is not a one-off for General Bondi. She has made this a mission priority, and the FBI will follow in every corner of this country and every square centimeter of this planet to eradicate the narco traffickers and the foreign terrorist organization that are killing American citizens. They will be held accountable. We will take preventive measures, and we will scour the ends of the...
Okay, that's enough. It goes on, and I apologize for letting it go on even that long. I had watched it earlier, and I really thought that was more interesting than that. Bottom line is, we nailed some drug dealers. Awesome, good work. We need more of that good news. Of course, we did have the big news of the day, and the big news was it didn't make it. How sad? Yeah. Sorry, gotta. Now that I can see the live chat, by the way, this is one of the other reasons why I love doing it live. I can see the live chat finally. And there's Chuck Phoenix's Hunter Biden's monthly shipment didn't make it. How sad. I don't know about that. This is only $500 million worth of cocaine. I don't know if that might maybe be Hunter's weekly shipment didn't make it through. But anyway, yes, thank you. And again, I am watching the chat. Finally, it's been a long time. I apologize to those who have chatted in the past. And as a result, it's unfortunate, but reality is that because I haven't been commenting on chats. A lot of times people just don't do it. Well, now I'm watching you. I'm watching what you're saying in the chat. So chime in, tell me, hey, whatever, I agree, or say something funny like Chuck Fina. We'll just call him Chuck. Speaking of Chuck Schumer, I'm not going to play the video. I want to play the video so badly, but Chuck Schumer, he had said back in 2017 that he actually agrees with President Trump's tariff plan more so than he agreed with the trade policies of either Barack Obama or George W. Bush. Of course, that's who he was working with in his earlier career, and he didn't like it. He wanted to go after China hard. So did Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders has actually stayed semi-consistent. He's been more open lately, whereas Chuck Schumer's coming out there and saying, "Oh, this is totally gonna ruin the the economy and Trump's trying to do this, that, or the other. Bernie is at least a little bit more honest than Chuck Schumer. Of course, I think Chuck Schumer's done anyway. You have AOC, if she primaries him, which she will, and it's early on, but it seems as if she's going to have a heck of a lot more support. And I would love to see that. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people hate AOC. Obviously, I don't like her. Definitely don't like her policies, but I think that she's a great addition to the Democrat Party because I think she really represents what the Democrat Party represents, as does Jasmine Crockett down in Texas. Between the two of them, they have a tendency to, I feel, express the true feelings of the modern Democrat Party, at least the politicians. Now, does that translate into them appealing to Democrat voters? I would say that more and more Democrat voters are lurching further to the left, just as I would say that most independent voters, most either moderates or former moderates, are starting to realize that the Democrat Party is lurching to the left. They're also realizing that, for better or for worse, the Republican Party is becoming more open to certain things. Now, I don't like a lot of that. Okay, I am not what you would call a populist per se. I'm not somebody who generally sides with whatever the people want, something that makes sense. Just as an example, I'm going to throw this out there, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate for it, but this whole concept of, we've got to protect Social Security and Medicaid. I don't disagree with protecting, but we also have to protect it not just for ourselves or the people that are on it today or the people that are going to be on it in the next 5 or 10 years. We have to protect it forever or dismantle it slowly but surely. And I'm okay with either direction. What I don't want is for us to perpetuate the expansion that is unsustainable. Nobody wants to hear this. Nobody wants to say it, but I'll go ahead and say it. Unless we make major, massive reforms here very quickly, it's going to get to the point where it's not viable. And by it, I'm saying it as in the U.S. economy. We cannot sustain it indefinitely, not in its current position. Unfortunately, it was used as basically collateral against very, 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 very poor decisions by politicians for decades. And as a result, it no longer has any future beyond sustaining it until it no longer is able to be sustained. And we are talking about years, probably not decades. I know a lot of people put it, the latest projection I saw projects out to where by 2032 it will be insoluble. But we'll see. I think that there's a lot of things changing. Doge is doing its thing. We'll see what's able to happen. We'll see what sticks. But this whole concept of can't touch Social Security, can't touch Medicaid, can't touch any of that stuff. Well, if you can't, then we're going to be in trouble. Maybe not you or me, but our future generations are going to be in trouble. And where's the fairness in that? The answer to that question is, of course, none. So let's get into the big story of the day. Of course, President Trump and his team came out and put a 90-day pause on all of the reciprocal tariffs, put a 10% tariff across the board, and then spanked China with 125% tariff. That is huge. The video that I was going to play, the reason I was late for today's show, was a video of Kevin O'Leary saying that the tariff shouldn't be 104%, which was at the time. It should actually be 400%. And his reasoning behind that was very straightforward. He said, look, they make it impossible. They being China, they make it impossible for us to appropriately do business. They don't allow, you can't sue in their courts. You can't really import to there because of their restrictions, because of the tariffs. So they don't give access to American businesses to their burgeoning consumer market. And it is huge. There was a time, I think, when a lot of the deals were made initially. The concept was, okay, so the United States is a consumer nation. They can make things a lot cheaper than we can. So, and we can't really export much to them anyway because they don't have a lot of money. So we're going to just import, and it's okay if they put some restrictions on exports because we're free trade and yada, yada, yada. Well, that no longer applies because they are now consumers, thanks in large part to the fact that we have been their consumers for so long. We have made them rich. We have given them the ability to now, they've got all the money so they can buy stuff. But now they won't buy our stuff because they put on restrictions. They're like, yeah, we can let you buy our stuff, but we won't let our people buy your stuff. We won't let you import or export. We won't let America export as easily to China. And President Trump wants to change that. And that's a righteous maneuver. And this is what Kevin O'Leary was saying. He was saying that, look, we put on the tariffs, we set them super high, and it can't be like so debilitating that actual American companies are hurt by, because there will be. Let's face it, there's going to be some carnage. We have so many companies here in the United States of America that are dependent upon Chinese imports. And I don't want to hear, I know a lot of people say, well, they shouldn't have done that. Okay, well, that's not fair. Okay. It's just not fair. Companies that I've owned have always been American companies. To the point of, I remember getting into an argument with between a couple of my partners. I was on the side of two of my other partners, and we had a fourth partner who was saying, hey, we can get the bags from China. Nobody's going to know the difference. And it's going to save us like 7 cents or 8 cents a bag, which was actually not a tiny deal. It sounds like, oh, that's not much, but it adds up, right? And we're like, no. I mean, his argument was, well, nobody's going to know. It's like, yeah, but we'll know. And we are currently working with an American company that makes the Mylar bags that we need. So let's continue to do that. Saving 6 or 7 cents per bag. Yes, it adds up. It's worth it. It's worth it to keep our money here in the United States of America. We've made that choice, but there are other companies. And I would say maybe a majority of companies out there, that especially the ones that are selling products, lower end products, or even high end products for that matter, they look at the options, or they have looked at the options in the past, and they said, look, we can do better business if we import this, that, or the other from China or anywhere else, not just China, but mostly, let's face it, China is a huge chunk of what we import. Well, those companies, they weren't trying to necessarily be anti-American. They were making business decisions. So when people say, I have no sympathy for those people, those companies that are out there that are going to be hurt by this because they should have been buying American, in a lot of cases, some of those companies wouldn't exist if they weren't able to depend upon China. Now, we can debate the efficacy of that. It's a bad business model. I myself don't want any dependence on China. Okay. None. Like, as far as I'm concerned, anything that we can produce here, we need to be able to produce here. Anything that we cannot produce here, any resources that we don't have, let's figure out how to get them here. That includes things that are allegedly that we can't get, such as rare earths or pharmaceutical ingredients. These are things that we depend upon China and sometimes other nations, but mostly China, to supply us. Well, let's figure that out, because I don't want to be beholden to anyone. I'm not saying that we cut everybody off. I'm not an isolationist. All I want is to make sure that we are not beholden on anyone. We shouldn't have to make any foreign decisions based upon our reliance on some other country for something else. If they want to make their decisions based upon reliance on us, that's acceptable. And well, but is that unfair? Yeah, it is. But we're the United States of America, and they're not. So yeah, if other countries want to be dependent upon us for this, that, or the other, great, as long as it's fair for us. And as far as being forced to import anything, I don't want to be forced to import anything at all. And I'm hopeful that as we figure out a resolution, as Xi Jinping and President Trump or their various proxies negotiate to come up with a deal or not, a deal that will make trade more balanced, that will open us up, or open them up to us, so that we can start exporting to them, so that we can take advantage of their growing consumer marketplace. Until we can get to that, then we've got to figure out what is the worst case scenario here? How are we going to advance, or even in some cases survive, let alone thrive as a nation, if things do go south with China? Because there is no guarantee at all that China and the United States will always have a semi-frenemy style, you know, enemies, but we still work together kind of thing. There may come a time in the future, and possibly even in the very near future, where we cut them off, they cut us off, or both. We could eventually go to war with China. And if that were to happen, what would we do about rare earths? What will we do about pharmaceutical ingredients, where currently we get about 95, a little over 90% of our pharmaceutical ingredients come from China. We can't, there are certain drugs we could not produce without being able to import those ingredients from China. Now, somebody will call me out on this. They'll say, no, I did a fact check on that, and it showed only like 56% of pharmaceuticals are supplied with ingredients from China. And that is true. But what they don't tell you in that is that that's based upon static numbers of drugs. So, for example, you've got, say, and I'm using this as an obvious example to illustrate the point. Let's say we get ingredients for Motrin, and we can only get those from China. And we have ingredients for polyhexyphosphate, some drug that's used by 5,000 people in the United States for some rare disease. Okay, that one we can produce in the United States, right? So Motrin, we rely on China. Some other weird random drug with very few people using it, that one we can produce here in the United States. Based upon those numbers that say we only import like only 56% of our drugs rely on China. Based upon those numbers, well, it's like, well, only between those two, 50% of them we rely on China, and the other 50% we don't rely on China. So it's a 50-50 split, not taking into account that there are more bottles sold every minute of Motrin than every year of the other drug. Does that make sense? So when I say that it's over 90% of our pharmaceutical ingredients come from China, it's because we're talking about the overall usage, not the individual drugs. Does that make sense? Hopefully it did. And here's the thing. Does that mean that we, if we were to say go to war with China tomorrow, that 90% of our drugs would no longer be able to be produced? No, praise God that we're not in that dire of straits just yet. Of those 90% that come from China, a little over half of them we could produce here, or we could get outside of China. But there's still a large chunk that we can only currently get from China, and we need to figure out how to change that. That's what I'm talking about when I say we need to not be beholden on China or anyone else, to not be dependent on anyone else. That's what I'm referring to. And I believe that's what the Trump administration is trying to do. Their primary goal, to be clear, they have three major goals. And depending upon who you ask within the administration, any one of these three goals might be the quote unquote primary goal, right? Goal number one is to generate revenue. I would say that if you look at somebody like Howard Lutnick, that is his primary intention, is to generate revenue. Make it to where if we can get to that, $800 billion mark or so from tariffs yearly, then we would be able to initiate a massive tax cut for the middle class and here in the United States. That would be great. And that's what he's shooting for, right? Then you've got other members of the administration that say, yes, that's important, but really the most important aspect of it is getting these negotiations. And I would say Scott Bessent falls into this category, getting these companies to invest, 50 billion here, 500 billion there, $1 trillion here, whatever. And his focus is on getting these other companies, these outside companies from other nations, and even in some cases, nations themselves, to invest into industry here in the United States of America, by utilizing the tariffs to say, hey, you know what? Before it made sense for you to build it there and export it to us. Now it makes sense for you to just build it here and not have to pay the tariffs. And a lot of companies are doing that. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I guess it makes sense. Let's do it. Okay. Or hey, we got plants in Mexico. We got plants over here. We've been exporting it to America. we also have plants in America. Let's just expand our plants in America. This is very prominent, of course, in the automotive industry. We're seeing Ford doing that right now. And so and what, of course, what this does is it creates more American jobs. It also creates more American tax dollars. These companies are going to be paying more in taxes, even though they're avoiding the tariffs. As long as we can get the corporate taxes in line, then it will make total sense for a whole bunch of these companies to say, you know what, I'm going to pay extra for the American worker, but there are two reasons why that's not going to be a long-term pain for me. Number one, this will make up for the dramatically reduced tariffs, or the non-tariffs, replacing the tariffs with the tax, which they have to pay both right now. If they build it here, then they won't have to pay the tariff at all. They'll just have to pay the taxes. Great. Which is why we have to get the corporate tax in line, but whatever. But then there's a second concept, and a lot of the smarter companies are starting to realize this. And that's the fact that based upon the trajectory of American production, they might not have to hire a bunch of Americans to do the labor itself, or to do the calculations itself, or to do the whatever, because of the advancements of artificial intelligence and robotics. Now, I know anybody who's watched my show before, you know I am extraordinarily, not just skeptical, in many ways, I am gravely concerned about the rise of artificial intelligence, leading to artificial general intelligence, leading to artificial superintelligence, which to me is the end game, and that's where humanity becomes obsolete. We create our own Armageddon, so to speak, with the help, of course, of the powers and principalities that are guiding us down this road. Yada yada yada. Biblical discussion for another time. But and I do believe that robotics plays a very similar role in it. Both are advancing very rapidly, and both are getting to the point to where in the very near future, we're talking years, not decades, in the very near future, most jobs will not be us doing for example, digging the ditches. Instead of having 5 guys digging a ditch, it will be 1 guy controlling the robots digging the ditch. And you might say, well, but won't we lose jobs? What about the other 4 guys that are no longer digging ditches? Well, one of those guys is going to become a ditch digging robot mechanic. And another couple of those guys are going to become, they're going to get pulled out of the ditch digging industry altogether, because there's going to be tremendous growth in some other industry that once again is driven by artificial intelligence or robotics, or in most cases, both. Are you starting to see the picture? And then that leaves the 5th guy, who will probably, be living off Medicare or Medicaid or whatever. Again, a discussion for another day. So that is group 2, right? The Scott Bessents of the world, who their primary intention of all these tariffs, and especially the China tariff that is now 125%, his intention is to get more companies to invest in the United States, to create jobs here and all that good stuff. Then you've got the third group, and this is the group that I would say I fall in the most. I agree with the efficacy and the strategy of trying to bring jobs back to America. Love that. Trying to get tariff revenue instead of tax revenue. Love that. But to me, the biggest economic play here is the expansion of American industry outside of the United States of America. In other words, make it to where we can start selling our products and services more easily outside. Right now, it has been so unfair, and this has been the biggest casualty, by the way. This has been the biggest casualty of our idiotic trade policy for decades. It's not just, they're shipping the jobs off somewhere else. That's big. That's huge. I get it. It's not just, our taxes are so high. That's big. That's huge. I get it. But I don't think people realize today, they will realize if President Trump's plan continues to work, they will realize in the very near future, within years, that expansion of our ability to take our products and hit other markets, including China, including Vietnam, including across Europe. These other countries for years, for decades, they have said the same thing that we're fighting against with China right now. They said, you can import our stuff, but we're not going to allow you to export your stuff to us. And the mentality there on both sides has been like, you know what? You're the United States of America. You guys got all the money. You don't need to sell to some villager in Somalia. So yeah, we just won't let you do it. We would rather our our own people sell to our own people, but we also want you to buy our stuff. And Somalia was not exactly a huge trade partner, so I picked out the random wrong one, but you get the idea. Germany, okay, we want you to buy German products, but we also want the German people to only buy German products, or maybe work, within our economic infrastructure here within the European Union. So we're going to just make it easier for us to trade with each other, and we'll make it easy for you to import our stuff, but we're going to make it nearly impossible for your companies, for American companies, to export their goods, services, and resources to us. Again, this has been the only thing that's made it quote unquote fair is America's dominance in the marketplace. We've been able to weather the storm, to survive it. Sort of like, think of it like this. Think of it, if you have that, anybody has a rich uncle, which I wish I've always wanted to have a rich uncle. But if you ever had a rich uncle, okay, that rich uncle, okay, you know what? We're going to go out to dinner. The rich uncle is going to pay for it, right? Because that's what the rich uncle does. We have these get-togethers with the family, 8, 9, 10 people going out to dinner. Yeah, we're all working people. The rich uncle, he's rich. He's going to pay for everything, and because he always does. And we don't feel so bad because it might be $1,000 bill with alcohol and everything included. That would really hurt me if I had to pay for it. But my rich uncle, he can pay for it. He's not even going to notice. The United States has been the world's rich uncle for far too long. And guess what? The United States is no longer that rich of an uncle. The United States, this rich uncle happens to be $36 trillion in debt. So this rich uncle is now paying more in interest than on military expenditures. So the rich uncle has to do some things that perhaps that rich uncle didn't have to do before. And I would argue that the rich uncle should have seen this coming. And yes, the United States should have been doing what we're doing today. We should have been doing this decades ago. We fell victim to our own complacency, to our own corruption within government. There's a lot of people getting rich. A lot of people getting rich through Beijing. A lot of people getting rich through Munich. Just pick your nation, whichever nation you want to pick that has an unfair trade balance with the United States of America, or lack of balance, I should say. They don't have to pay us. They don't have to pay American businesses. They don't have to pay American people. They just have to pay American politicians and American bureaucrats. And that's a lot cheaper, believe it or not, than to engage in a fair trade relationship with the United States of America. It's a lot easier to just pay off a corrupt politician or bureaucrat. Unfortunately, there are far too many of those. I did a segment earlier today that got a little bit of attention, not a lot. It didn't go nearly as viral as others. Oh, you know what? Actually, this one did okay. This one had tens of thousands of views across the spectrum. So this one actually did pretty well. But I did this segment before doing the tariff change was announced by the Trump administration. So, but this still applies because we're talking about China here. So pretend like anything else. I don't remember what I said about the other nations, but everything regarding China still applies. And if anything, it applies more so. So watch. China releases videos revealing how they really feel about Americans. Now, given the choice between being hated by someone and being belittled or demeaned, I would actually rather be hated. At least there's a passion there. At least we're not being dismissed or disregarded or belittled. But when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party and their indoctrinated people, many of whom are brainwashed, of course, when it comes to them, they don't necessarily hate us. They just think very little of us. And they revealed that very recently, following the tariffs that have been now imposed upon China, these massive tariffs, 104%. Well, they're lashing out in many ways, and I'll explain the other ways they're lashing out. But one way that they're lashing out is with this propaganda campaign utilizing AI-generated videos to apparently try to make us feel bad about ourselves. Well, wasn't that special? Look, let's be crystal clear about three things. Number one, nothing happens in China without the direct approval or even the commission of the Chinese Communist Party. This isn't some random kid in some basement in China making these AI videos and putting them out there. This is part of the plan. Number two, we are not the audience for this. Yes, they want us to see it. They want to make fun of us. But what they're really trying to do is to persuade their own people that, hey, America's going to back down. Americans are fat. Americans are lazy. Americans can't do the work that you all do. So don't worry. We're going to fight this and we're going to win. That's the message. You might get to see it. It might insult you. It might even maybe concern some Americans. But in reality, the target audience for those videos are the Chinese people, to try to get them prepared for the carnage that comes, which brings us to number three. There is carnage coming. China is against the ropes. They are on the verge of economic collapse. I don't know if Americans realize just how close they are to succumbing to their own failures, as well as the pressure that's being put on them by President Trump's administration through these tariffs and through other means. China is against the ropes. President Trump is holding all of the cards. Why? Because of, as I noted yesterday, they export to us far, far more than we export to them. And it's not just because they're able to produce products more inexpensively. They're able to produce cheaper products, yes. But it's also because of, and this doesn't just address China, this addresses pretty much the rest of the world. It comes down to market access. Look, we talk about it all the time. We say, oh, there's going to be the benefits to Treasury because we're going to generate a bunch of revenue and we're going to bring the companies back. Companies are going to come here. They're going to open up shop here. They're going to bring in American jobs. Those are all very important talking points. Those are all very, very good economic strategies by President Trump. But the one that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, basically because it's kind of I guess a challenging talking point to disseminate, is that market access is the real end game here. What we really want is the ability for American companies, American corporations, Americans in general, to be able to sell our products and services abroad, to be able to go to China, which is now a consumer nation, not just a producing nation like before, but they are a full-blown consumer nation. We want them to be able to buy our stuff. And that's something that is going to have, I would say, a far bigger economic impact than the aforementioned additional revenues for Treasury or even bringing back American jobs. It is about market access. Let's look at what Breitbart was saying about those particular AI videos. This comes from David Boyce, or Paul Boyce, David Boyce. Oops. This comes from Paul Boyce over at Breitbart. China creates AI video mocking American workers after Trump tariffs. And they said AI video as if it's singular. I've seen on TikTok alone, I've seen several of them being disseminated out there right now. China responded to President Donald Trump's tariff threats by creating AI videos showing fat Americans working in warehouses. The videos featuring chubby Americans toiling away in factories went viral on social media, a way to mock the Trump administration's aim of returning manufacturing jobs back to American soil. And we already played it. The videos came after China vowed to fight to the end in response to President Donald Trump's threatening to impose a 50% duty on imports if Beijing does not withdraw the retaliatory 34% tariffs it imposed on American products last week. China's Commerce Minister said in a statement that it resolutely opposes the president's escalating threat of tariffs and will not back down. Gosh, I hope he's wrong. The U.S., and this is a quote from a CNBC translation, the U.S. threat to escalate tariffs on China is a mistake on top of a mistake. China will never accept it. If the U.S. insists on its own way, China will fight to the end. Well, that end may be coming sooner rather than later for them because they will not be able to survive this. They cannot survive as an economy if they have these tremendous tariffs imposed against them. They rely on the United States economy. And if those economic doors are shut, which they are officially as of right now, they are basically shut, they will not be able to survive. We're not talking about years here. We're talking at the most months before collapse. I would say it's more likely weeks. And depending on we don't know a whole lot about their economy, but what we do know, it is possible that they could start to show signs of collapse in a matter of days. It is important that Americans understand this. It's important that we support President Trump and his efforts. Because will this result in higher prices in the short term for Americans? Yes. Yes, it will. Will it result in far greater economic prosperity for the entirety of the nation in the not so long term? We're not talking about decades down the line. We're talking about future years and even future months. Will this benefit Americans in the mid and long term? Absolutely. What do y'all think, by the way? What do you think of the new Stinger, that lightning strike thing? I have been working on that. I had a professional who happens to be my teen daughter put that together for me. I think it's fantastic. Then again, I might just be a proud papa doing my proud papa thing. So yeah, they hate us, but more importantly, they disrespect us, and that's part of how China is able to keep their I should say the Chinese Communist Party. That's part of the way that they're able to keep their people in line against the United States. They don't try to view us as a threat. They try to make it to where, we're basically sort of we stumbled upon everything. We don't know how to do anything. All of our benefits, all the great things in America, it's in spite of us. We just happened to get a hold of a bunch of land that was owned by Native Americans, and that land had lots of riches and gold and silver and platinum or diamonds or whatever they want to say. They want their people, and they indoctrinate their people into this concept that we, the American people, are worthless, and that we're basically the lucky ones. And that makes people jealous. It does. It makes many of the Chinese people are very jealous of us because they know that they work hard. They don't realize, based on what their government is telling them, they don't realize that we work hard too. Okay. They think that we just sit back and watch Netflix and eat popcorn and smothered in butter and honey. They don't see us as capable of competing against them. And that's one of the things I would argue that China doesn't want. They don't want that bubble to burst. They don't want their people to learn that America can be self-sufficient, self-reliant, self-everything. We are one of the few nations in the world that, if we do get certain little things in place, and maybe not so little, but if we can get certain aspects of what's the word for it? If we can get a hold of certain resources like rare earths, like the aforementioned pharmaceutical ingredients, if we can get those things in line, if we ever had to be, we could go straight up North Korea, right? We could be completely self-sufficient as a nation. We have the agriculture, we have the people, we have the technology, we have the land, we have the weather. That plays a big part of it. We have everything that we need, all the resources, just about. All of the know-how, just about. We could, if we wanted to, say, hey, you know what? We're going to build a big wall around the United States of America, whether it's ideological or whatever. We're going to block out the rest of the world. And we're just going to do our thing. We're not going to import anything. We're not going to export anything. We're just going to be completely self-contained, self-reliant. Now, I'm not saying we should do that, but don't misread what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we could, and not a lot of countries can do that, especially the larger ones. The bigger a country gets, the more dependent they become on other countries to supply what they need, even whether it's for lifestyle or for necessity. Some countries could not survive, could not exist without bringing in whatever it is, resources or technology or something from somewhere else. And that somewhere else, generally speaking, a lot of that has been from China. But there are ways for us to grab a hold of that. And that's, again, this comes back to what is the main reason that I want these tariffs to work. Yes, it's great to have the revenue. Awesome. It's great to have the jobs coming home. Awesome. But to me, the greatest benefit is going to be us being able to take advantage of and to get ourselves into other markets. We're not the only market in the world. Just because we can be self-sustained, self-reliant, doesn't mean that we have to be. All I want, through no matter what direction any of this goes, I just want to make sure that we're not beholden to anybody else. And again, there are certain threats that currently make that a challenge. So we'll see how that goes. There was some great news, by the way. Good news. I don't want to oversell it. I don't know if we can call it great news, but it was very good news, and I would say is extraordinarily symbolic news in many ways. Let me see if I can do this. I don't know if I have this set up right. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, I did. Okay. So, this news came from the House of Representatives. The House passes bill limiting district court judges from stopping White House moves with nationwide injunctions, something that should have been the case forever. It really is. It's still unfortunate that we have to do this, but so be it. This is, in many ways, this has been good, and I have advocated for in the past for the power of certain judges to be able to go after a federal jurisdiction, not because I want activist judges, but because I wanted the means, the methodology through which states or individuals, it doesn't matter how big, it could be a grandma in Tecumseh, Oklahoma, who wants to sue the federal government for this, that, or the other, and there has to be a way for that to happen. And the only way that can happen is if there is a process through which national jurisdiction can be made available to the individual American. In other words, yes, the most isolated individual American citizen should be able to sue the United States of America in a proper, free and fair world. Because take away that possibility, and now we have to go through other channels, and that's unfortunately, that's prohibitive in many ways. But here's the thing: it has been abused so badly, especially during Trump's administration, that now I haven't changed my thought there. I'm looking for solutions to the loopholes that are being used for the left to engage in massive lawfare, utilizing these activist district judges to go after the presidency. That's really what it comes down to. So according to this article, this is by Tariffs Boudreaux from the Center Square. Legislation banning federal district court judges from issuing nationwide injunctions passed the House of Representatives on Wednesday evening in an effort to address what Republicans call judicial overreach, and that's to say the least. Multiple district judges have recently slapped universal injunctions on President Trump's rapid-fire government reforms in response to lawsuits filed in district courts. The nationwide edicts have raised questions on whether judges should be able to grant relief to parties not included in a case. The bill, passed 218-214, states that no United States district court shall issue any order providing for injunctive relief except in the case of such an order that is applicable only to limit the actions of a party to the case before such district court. Now, what does that mean? We'll see. Darrell Issa, U.S. Representative from California, sponsored the bill, which he says will remedy a major malfunction of judicial activism. His bill, it's called the No Rogue Rulings Act of 2025, won't only deal with excesses like Judge Boasberg's outrageous demands on the president and the Trump administration. It is the comprehensive solution we need to ensure that this problem does not occur anywhere in our federal judiciary and resets the proper and appropriate balances in our court. All Democrats opposed the bill, but all but 2 Republicans supported it. The passage allows and by the way, I didn't mention who those son of a gun. I apologize. I should have actually researched who those people were. I think one of them was, pretty sure one of them was Turner. I didn't see who the other one was. I'll have to address a different article for that. But yeah, this is good news. There's a similar bill being put forth by Chuck Grassley in the Senate. That's going to be tougher to get passed, but hopefully, Lord willing, we will be able to see this, because let's face it, it's stupid. I mean, it's stupid that some U.S. district judge from Connecticut can basically undo the policies of the President of the United States. It's stupid. It's ludicrous, and it has to stop. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the long-term solution. Something has to be done, and I would argue that if they being well, not just they, you and I, if we can somehow pressure enough senators to get on board, Democrats to get on board with this. It's a daunting task, to say the least, but I would say that it's definitely not impossible, and it's something that we should strive for. Speaking of, look, we've seen things that I would have thought were practically impossible, and now all of a sudden they are a reality. We're seeing that at the border. I don't know if anyone who wasn't who was being realistic would have realized or would have been able to predict that we would go from just massive numbers, thousands, tens of thousands daily, down to itty bitty trickle of illegal aliens crossing over. But that's exactly what's happened. Now, in retrospect, you can say, oh, well, of course, because President Trump and yada, 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 and the NGOs and this, that, or the other, I knew there was going to be a major reduction. But if it had dropped 70%, we'd be like, woohoo, right? It's dropped like 98% or 99%. It's insane. But it hasn't solved the overall problem. We still have tens of millions of illegal aliens here in the United States of America. And that is also a very daunting task, but I think it can be addressed. Now, there are those, even within the administration, who have signaled that, you know what, we just need to get rid of the criminal illegal aliens. We just need to get rid of those ones that are out there raping and murdering or assaulting or robbing or doing whatever. Let's just get rid of those. And I say, my perspective is, yeah, let's get rid of them first. Let's target them first. But just because somebody hasn't committed a crime, either recently or maybe they haven't been caught doing it, or maybe they just haven't done it. Maybe they're just here. They just want to get their piece of the American dream. My message to those people is, fine, then self-deport and come back in legally. Is that harsh? You betcha. But as a legal immigrant, somebody who was born outside of the United States of America, who came here through proper channels legally, I can tell you that I have no problem with immigrants getting their piece of the American dream, as long as they participate actively. They love the United States of America and the opportunity that this nation provides for them. As long as they assimilate, there's that famous word, that as long as they assimilate into American culture, awesome. But most importantly, as long as they come here legally, they could be paying taxes, doing great work, all this other stuff. They could have completely assimilated, sent their kids to public school and to college, and they could have been doing this for the last 30 years. But here's the thing. If they're here illegally, they still got to go. And I know that's unpopular for me to say, unpopular for me to feel, but I don't care. And apparently neither does Scott Jennings. I did not know that this was his perspective, but he made a pretty decent case on good old CNN earlier today.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that. 7 million means that they're not just going after criminals.
Well, they're going after people who are in the country illegally, right?
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying the criminals. This is a much bigger universe.
Doesn't that make you a criminal?
No, it doesn't.
To come across the border illegally?
Coming into the country illegally is a civil offense. It's not a criminal offense.
Okay, if you come into the country illegally, here's the message. We're going to find you and send you back. I mean, I'm sorry, that's the way it is. And I think the government should pull all the levers at its disposal to find people and pull this off. It's what the American people asked Donald Trump to do. Yes, they should be deporting violent people. Yes, they should be deporting people who committed violent acts before they came here. But at some juncture, if you're going to allow any illegal immigration at all, the message then goes out. Just get here. It'll probably work out for you. That was the last administration. This is a different one.
The government.
I don't know who that other CNN panelist was, but I don't watch CNN. I occasionally catch Scott Jennings clips on social media. That's about it. But whoever that other panelist was, did you see the look in her face? I mean, it was worse than daggers. That was really bad. Speaking of daggers, did you know? I didn't know this until I started exploring it. Did you know that the Alex Jones store sells daggers, literal daggers? I know because one of my readers on one of my sites, probably AmericaFirstReport.com, actually bought one. I know because they bought it through my partnership link, and you can too. You can buy a dagger through the Alex Jones store by going to jdrucker.com/Infowars. jdrucker.com/Infowars. Now I know chances are most of you aren't going to go buy a dagger. Some of you should. Okay. I mean, who doesn't want a dagger? Especially if you're a dude, if you're an American, okay, and you don't want a dagger, I got questions. I think that every American male and maybe a good chunk of American females should want their own dagger, and you can get that by going to jdrucker.com/Infowars, as it says. It said earlier, said on the screen. But there's more than that. They have methylene blue. You guys remember that viral video of RFK Jr. on Air Force One, and somebody's filming him or taking a picture of him, and he's got his water or some kind of drink, and he's got that blue thing, that eyedropper. He's dropping blue stuff in it and drinking. That was methylene blue, and you can get that at a very great discount. You can even subscribe over at the Alex Jones store, again, by going to jdrucker.com/Infowars. Good stuff there. It helps support one independent journalist, me, as well as an independent network, Infowars. So it's win-win across the board. Who wouldn't want to do that? Sean Duffy. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to play it. I'm not even going to tell you what it's about. I'm just going to play this clip of Sean Duffy. He's at the some kind of, I don't know which ceremony, some ceremony. So fortunately, I don't remember which one. I found this video early, technically yesterday morning, if you're on the East Coast, early yesterday morning, and I don't remember who it was. I know he's addressing midshipmen. I think it might, I don't know. Well, let's just play it.
You're going to be part of DOT. And so I want you to know that you're going to be part of DOT. And so I want you to know you're going to be part of DOT. And so I want you to know that I understand the conditions here, and I am going to fight my ass off to make sure you all get the respect and the money that this academy deserves. And so again, not only smart, not only strong, but you are a great looking bunch of young people. Handsome too. And so with that, as you all go into your careers, God bless you. May God keep you safe. By the way, could we bring Jesus up from the basement? Let's not put Jesus in the basement. Let's put him out. Put him out. I know you hear about that. You want Jesus up in the basement, right? Great. That was the loudest applause we got. We are going to work on that together and funding for the Academy. May God bless you all. Stay safe. Let's go.
Praise God for that. Praise God for Sean Duffy, who, as Transportation Secretary, has been a tremendous surprise to me. Now, granted, following up his predecessor, Mr. Buttigieg, isn't saying a lot, but he has been very, very, very excellent at what's considered to be a lower end cabinet position, of course. But I think he's done a tremendous job. And let's not forget, like literally his first day after being confirmed was when the DC crash happened, the Black Hawk hitting the airplane. So he was thrown in real fast and had to make decisions immediately. I think he's done a tremendous job. And that was, by the way, the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. So that, thankfully, it showed on the screen. So I knew exactly where he was. All right. And I apologize, by the way. I'm just trying to get used to Rumble Studios, make it work properly. If I push play on my end, if it doesn't look like it's playing, then I won't I have to stop it and restart it. And so on your end, you might see it start to play, and then it cuts back to me making some weird face, and then cuts back to the beginning of the video and cuts back to me making some weird face. That's because I really need support. I need a producer for this. I need a producer. Help me, help you. I'm going to play one more ad, but this isn't my ad. This is actually Ken Paxton's ad. Now, Ken Paxton, for those who don't know, he announced yesterday or the day before that he is officially running for U.S. Senate. He's going to primary John Cornyn, who is, gosh, one of the worst rhinos out there. I think the only good thing about John Thune winning Senate Majority Leader position, taking over for Glitch McConnell, the only good thing about Thune winning is that he wasn't Cornyn. Cornyn would have been far worse. And look, Thune has been okay so far. I got to admit it. Okay. I've been very terrified. Wrong word. I've been very concerned about John Thune ever since for even when he was basically the Senate handler for Mitch McConnell. You see all the Mitch McConnell speeches. You always had John Thune standing behind him, ready to catch him or push him aside if he ever glitched. Well, he's the protege. And so having somebody as awful as Mitch McConnell, being the Senate Majority and Minority Leader, depending upon who's in the majority at the time, having Mitch McConnell leading the GOP Senate has been a disaster for the nation. And having his protege step in, has been a concern. And it still is a concern. I'm not sold on him yet, but I will admit that so far he's been okay. Nothing exceptional. I haven't seen anything good from him, but he hasn't done the bad things that I was expecting that he would do. Now, look, he's still got plenty of time. He's got a year and a half to start doing bad things, so I'm going to keep my eyes on him. But so far, I can say he hasn't been horrible. With that said, John Cornyn is horrible. Can't believe he represents Texas. I'm so disappointed in my brothers and sisters in Texas for electing this guy multiple times. He is a disaster, an absolute disaster. Okay. Anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, anti-America. This guy is owned and operated and not by the American people. So Ken Paxton, on the other hand, he's got some controversies behind him. Sure. Yeah. The guy's got a little bit of sort of a rogue streak in him, which is odd for an attorney general, to be clear. But I think he's done a very good job as attorney general. And I think that he would be a dramatic improvement over John Cornyn. So I'm going to play his ad. He dropped, within hours after announcing his run, he already had his first campaign ad ready to go. And I'm going to play it for y'all right now.
Senator John Cornyn turned his back on President Trump.
You've said that you think it's time for the Republican Party to move on from President Trump.
In politics, unless you could win an election, you're pretty much irrelevant.
John Cornyn of Texas told CBS News he simply doesn't think Donald Trump can get elected president. Quite a statement from Senator Cornyn.
Cornyn told Fox 26 he won't be supporting former President Trump, and neither should other Republicans.
John Cornyn supports amnesty and says Texans should just deal with millions of illegal aliens.
The American people are a compassionate people, then I think they would find a way to deal with the 12 million people.
He even fought to stop President Trump's border wall.
New giant wall from sea to shining sea makes no sense whatsoever.
The idea of a wall is somewhat off-putting to a lot of people.
And when John Cornyn joined Joe Biden to take away our gun rights, President Trump sounded the alarm.
There are some Republicans, including former President Trump, who are ripping this and ripping you as well.
John Cornyn has decided to take guns from lawful gun owners. And if there's one reason you vote Republican, it's to prevent that.
John Cornyn doesn't share our values. It's time for a change. Ken Paxton is the conservative fighter they couldn't cancel.
An attorney general who has really led the way, somebody who has been brave and strong, Ken Paxton.
Ken Paxton is America's most conservative attorney general. He sued Joe Biden over 100 times to stop his lawless agenda. As Attorney General, Ken Paxton protected our gun rights, defended the right to life, and took on the radical transgender movement to keep men out of women's sports, locker rooms, and bathrooms. A fearless conservative, he's taken on the establishment and held big tech and big pharma accountable. Now, Ken Paxton is running for Senate to stand with President Trump and help him make America great again. As our next senator, Ken Paxton will cut our taxes, defend our borders, and eliminate all the woke programs John Cornyn funded. Stand up for Texas. Fight for our future. Join the Ken Paxton for Senate team today.
Good stuff there. You know, I'm going to play a couple more videos. I definitely, absolutely, positively have to get better at this this side of things, because the idea here, for those who missed it, maybe you missed it at the beginning of the show, maybe you missed it yesterday. I'm going to keep talking about it from time to time just so everybody understands. I'm the editor over at thelibertydaily.com. And as such, you know, this is a site that gets anywhere from 11 to 13 million hits per month. And I need to update it every night. I work it every night. During the day, I do other things. So you know, sometimes I'm able to do these segments of the show, which I played one earlier, get those uploaded individually. But then doing this show, the live show, I do it at night, but the idea is that I'm supposed to be working on the Liberty Daily at the same time. I'm having some challenge with that. And I think some of it's going to be helpful by having more of these videos and longer videos, because I keep trying. I put the video on and I start to get a post going, and I might have to play another video just to finish that post because I can't be talking to you all and doing the video at the same time. Now you might say that makes it unfair, Rucker. You know, you're not giving us your full attention. Well, I do when I'm talking about a particular story. You have my full attention. I'm putting my best efforts into explaining what's happening in the world. But unfortunately, that means that if I go on a 20, 30, 40-minute rant or multiple rants during that time, that means that I'm not, because I'm giving my full attention to you all, I'm not doing the Liberty Daily. So I'm going to have to balance this out appropriately. Normally, under normal circumstances, I'll take stories from stories that I'm going to consider putting up on the Liberty Daily. I will read them with you all live, or at least scan through them, talk about them, and we'll make the decision together. That's what I hope to be able to do. But to be able to properly do that, I have to have all of everything situated properly. Make sense? So I'm going to try to do that. So, learning experience, right? Well, I'm going to play a couple more videos so that I can get caught up on the Liberty Daily, and then I will catch you all here, I guess, in 2 minutes and 53 seconds. This video is, I don't know how old this one is. From what I could tell in the comments, because I found this on X, from what I can tell in the comments, this video is relatively old, but it definitely still applies to today. And I know it's hard to tell based upon the fact that I am a large man, but I am actually a very health conscious man. Praise God for my wonderful wife who does keep me from becoming a 300 plus pounder. She keeps me from, because I probably would. I love food, right? Well, she also keeps me eating healthy. And she was telling me, this has been, gosh, a decade ago. She was telling me that you know, we have to check on all of our garlic because we can't get any garlic from China. I don't question. I'm like, okay, we won't get any garlic from China. Done. And we stopped getting garlic from China. We started checking all the garlic before we'd get it and see if it came from China. Well, I see this video come across my feed. This is Senator Rick Scott talking about garlic from China. And I watched it, and it's like, okay. So finally, the federal government is coming around to an understanding that my wife came to back in 2008. So, and hopefully you will come to the conclusion that, you know, no matter what, you can get Chinese socks if you want, I guess, if you must, but but definitely don't get your food from China. Watch.
Is garlic dangerous? Well, maybe. You see, Communist China produces the majority of the world's garlic. But what Communist China doesn't tell you is exactly how they're producing it. Now, we already know that Communist China doesn't play by our rules or have Americans' best interest in mind. Communist China has a proven track record of producing unsafe goods. We can't trust its food to be safe for our families. This is especially true for garlic grown in Communist China. There are reports that shine a light on alleged disgusting practices that Communist China uses to grow garlic, then export it to the United States. Reports indicate that Chinese garlic is grown using raw sewage, possibly including human feces, and that the garlic is then bleached to make it appear whiter and cleaner to the eye after its growth in unsanitary conditions. It's also processed using slave labor. Communist China uses slave labor, and these poor people are forced to peel so much garlic that their fingernails literally fall off. So they have to use their teeth to get the job done. It's horrific. And it means that Chinese sewage garlic should be unacceptable for human consumption. Would you knowingly feed this to your kids? Of course not. And what's frightening is that the United States does not inspect and ensure the vast majority of imported Chinese sewage garlic is safe and up to our standards. And this is something we eat, cook with, feed our families and kids. We shouldn't have any doubt in our minds that when we go to the grocery store and pick up garlic, that it's safe and up to our standards. We have to get to the bottom of this. When our health, safety, and well-being is at risk, we have to take this seriously. Every single time we see something labeled made in China, we need to question whether it's safe for our families. That's why I asked the Commerce Department to investigate how Chinese sewage garlic is grown, and why I will soon be introducing the Sewage Garlic Act to ban the import of garlic from Communist China to protect Americans from this gross practice. I'm also asking every single grocery store to take Chinese sewage garlic off its shelf. Every single store. Get it off the shelves. But for now, it's up to you. It's up to you to protect yourself and your family. Next time you're in the grocery store and you see made in China on garlic, ask yourself, do you want to serve that to your family?
I have to watch, oddly enough, I have to watch the live chat over at YouTube. So for a while now, basically the way that the show's been working, I do the clips, right? I do these the segments, pre-recorded segments, and those do very, very well on YouTube. The live show, not so much. The live show might get dozens of views, whereas the individual shorter segments will get thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of views. Awesome. Whereas on Rumble, the live show far outperforms the individual clips. So I've been focusing on the Rumble for the live show, focusing on YouTube for the clips, right? Well, I have to watch because we had we had a chat, a comment over on the YouTube live show. Missy SOJ, she says the graphics are very nice, referring, I'm assuming, to earlier when I had said, asked about the new graphics that my daughter had designed for me. And I almost missed it. Incredible. This is good stuff. We really are trying to do some great stuff here. One of the ways that we're doing that is through my longtime sponsors over at jdrgold.com. With gold, of course, skyrocketed shortly after the announcement. I've obviously not like the stock market, but then again, keep in mind that gold didn't plummet the way that the stock market did, so it didn't have as much room to rise the way that the stock market rose following Trump's announcement of a 90-day pause on all tariffs outside of China, right? But gold still rose very nicely. And I would argue, I'm not a financial advisor, but I would argue that it does make sense for many Americans who are considering, who would like to see their retirement, their life savings backed by physical precious metals, they can and should do so by going through a good company. And jdrgold.com is the place to go because they will help you. I mean, they will literally help you. It's not just about, let's see how we can screw people over. That's not their shtick. Their shtick is more along the lines of, hey, let's get as many customers as we can. And if we make a lower margin on them, so be it. As long as we're helping more Americans, we're still going to make our money. That's their concept, and I love it. So if you are in the market, if you are considering, and again, not a financial advisor, but to me, it makes sense. If you are considering rolling over or transferring your current or previous old retirement accounts into physical precious metals, the best place to do that is jdrgold.com. Now, if you want to do the same thing, but not with gold and silver, if instead you want to do it with cryptocurrencies, there's a lot of people that are starting to do that. And to be clear, I've been against cryptocurrencies for a long time, not because I love the idea of decentralized currencies. I am concerned about the global elite cabal not allowing them to be decentralized for a long time. Well, once President Trump was elected, and once he started expressing his desires to make sure that cryptocurrencies are not only preserved, but that they grow, and then when he went off and banned central bank digital currencies here in the United States of America, it's like, okay, well, I guess we're doing crypto now. So I started working with a long-term a retirement company that does assist with cryptocurrencies at jdrcrypto.com. Now, the way that they do it, it's very different from others. There are a few companies out there that do this. Not a lot, but a few. The difference with jdrcrypto.com is that they don't engage in the buy and hold strategy. That's the easy button, right? It's also the not very profitable button. You have to rely on Bitcoin to keep going up, 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 Ethereum to keep going up, up, up. Whereas at jdrcrypto.com, you have the ability, the company, by the way, is called Block Trust IRA. With Block Trust IRA, they will take your retirement account, take the cryptocurrency, and make decisions for you, driven by artificial intelligence, make decisions for you about whether or not to get into Bitcoin at this particular moment, or hey, Bitcoin looks like it's going to be dipping, so let's move the portfolio into a stable coin. We'll wait for Bitcoin to hit its bottom, and then we'll buy it back up with the money that we moved over into stablecoins. They have an extraordinarily it's an award-winning program, to be clear. So if you want to learn more about that, get a better explanation from an expert, not from me, go to jdrcrypto.com. Either way, you can say, oh, but the stock market's back. Well, how long? How long until the next crash? How long until it stabilizes and does nothing, which it has essentially been doing for quite a while? Yeah, up until, yes, we got a lot of that money back today. But what happens when the next policy affects it? What happens if there's challenges, war? Here's the thing. If you're betting on President Trump, he seems to be, in his administration, seems to be betting heavily on gold and cryptocurrencies. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to get into financial advice because that's going to get me in trouble. Speaking of elections, Chuck Todd came out. He was on Piers Morgan's show. I believe it was last night. On Piers Morgan's show, talking about the cover-up and talking about the fact that many in legacy media, perhaps most, perhaps nearly all of them, were covering for Joe Biden for a very specific reason. Not because they thought, oh, this guy's got it all. He's got all of his mental acuity. They didn't think that. They just hated Trump.
Thank you all for being.
I sit here and I'll defend a little bit of this, in that I would argue the reason people were able to come to their own conclusion on Joe Biden is because of the media coverage. Look, we were subtle. He's using the back staircase. He's not using the front staircase. Hey, he's not doing any interviews. So there was this reluctance to draw the conclusion to say, is he not doing this? And that I agree with. That was held back a lot. I would argue it was also held back a lot back in the late 80s when it was clear Ronald Reagan wasn't necessarily running everything in the White House. Whether you want to call it decorum, whatever you want to call it, look, there were plenty members of the media. I remember David Ignatius in the Washington Post plenty of individual people questioning whether he should run. I certainly questioned whether he should run. You didn't understand, there were some of that. But I understand the argument about the collective on that front. The only thing I can chalk it up to is this, whatever you want to call it, this fear that some members of the media had sometimes that they would be perceived as helping Trump if they somehow diminished Biden, right? That it was some sort of zero-sum game. Mm-hmm. And I think this has been the fundamental mistake that many members of the traditional press have done.
I am determined to make this work, to make Rumble Studios work, because I love Rumble so much. Okay, I really do. And I know, if you're watching on YouTube, you're like, well, what about us? Well, no, I love you. I just don't necessarily love YouTube, but I love my viewers wherever they are. But the Rumble, I got to make this work. I got to make this work. And I'm going to strive. I apologize for the choppiness. Please tune back in tomorrow at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Tune back in and hopefully, every day will get a little bit better. This shouldn't be nearly this challenging. So again, we're talking about user error here. I'm willing to accept that, but that means that I just have to practice, which means I have to keep doing these shows, which means that I'm going to continue to occasionally embarrass myself. I would love to get back to the point back in the days when I would do live radio. It was so easy, or even live video. When I had a producer, it was so easy because I could just focus strictly on the content. I didn't have to worry about clicking the wrong button as I did just now, or the button works, but it didn't work as far as I was concerned, but I guess it did work. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to work on this. So please tune back in tomorrow and every day, at least Monday through Friday, possibly on the weekends, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. We will do this again until we get it right. And then once we start getting it right, we'll keep doing it again and again and again, because the United States of America needs us, needs you, needs me, needs Americans who are willing to go outside of the standard legacy media, outside of even conservative media in many ways. A lot of people, unfortunately, in conservative media are not putting out the right messages. I hate to say it, but they really aren't. They're putting out the messages that are going to benefit their show the most. And I understand the concept there. Okay. There's a reason why I can have 30 live viewers at a time across all the various channels versus back in the day when I would have thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of live listeners. I'm not going to give up, though. Just because we're small today doesn't mean that, I guess I'm just gonna phone it in, give it up. I'm going to keep doing this every day, and we're going to grow. But we're not going to grow because I'm saying the popular talking point of the moment, right? We're going to grow because I'm going to always tell you the truth. I'm not going to tell you anything that you might necessarily want to hear. Some of it you'll want to hear, just because if the truth is something that you want to hear, great, you're going to hear it. If the truth is something that you don't want to hear, you're still going to hear it. That's the promise I can make to you. I'm not going to say things or do things that are designed specifically to get, all right, rah, hit the subscribe button and get more of this super awesome populist content. No, I'm going to do the best faith-driven, culturally appropriate, politically conservative content that I can put out there. And I'll get things wrong. And when I get it wrong, I'll tell you, hey, I got that one wrong. And if I get it right, I'm going to say, what can I say? I got it right. Once again, always right, except when I'm wrong. So be sure to push that subscribe button, push the like button. I checked earlier, very embarrassing. I had no likes. I had to like it myself. I think at one point I was the only person that liked this show. And I don't blame you. Look, I had some technical challenges today, so I can understand why you wouldn't. But give me a is it a pity like, I guess? You can like it if you like it. Don't like it if you don't like it. Thumbs down, all that good stuff. I do care. I'm not going to say I don't care, because I do. But I'm not going to sit here and beg. Okay, maybe I'll occasionally beg, but I won't always beg. Usually I'll try to do it the right way and just produce great content. So, Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you all stay strong, Stay safe, and God bless.